are soon to be, we hope. So we'll call the meeting to order. Liz, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Bob Calhoun is not here, I think. Lisa Pappas is not here. Marty Mayo.
Yes.
Tim Redmond.
Yes.
And Liz Wiseman is here, and Will Weber.
Here. Okay, and make note of Alec.
I've got it.
All right, did everyone receive a copy of the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, things have happened since the agenda went out, so we may have a few little twists and turns in it, but were there any further comments or things that people felt should go in? Looks okay? Yeah, we'll be busy with this. Can we have a motion for approval then?
So moved.
Thank you.
Liz, what's your second? I wasn't there, so I shouldn't.
For the agenda.
It's the agenda, not the minutes.
Yeah, second.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
You did it. Well, if there's no objections by acclaim, let's just approve it. Can we do that?
Yeah, we can do that by voice vote or hand raising.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next is approval of the minutes, which again, thank you, Liz, for a nice presentation. They went on for 6 pages. Were there any comments on the minutes or any corrections? I looked through them and they look good to me. It seemed to have captured what we talked about.
I wasn't here, but I learned a lot.
Okay. So then we should vote on approval then of the minutes. All in favor of approving the
We
minutes?
have a motion and a second.
Do we need to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Oh, gee, I didn't realize.
Did she just
Okay, no, good. Are you set now? Are we set?
Yeah, we're set.
Okay.
We have too many things going on.
All right.
So we need a motion and a second on the minutes, and then we need to have a
Right.
voice vote.
You have a motion?
I can't make it out of here.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Will? And it has to be,
Jim or?
I don't want to second my own
No,
minutes.
okay.
Yeah, well, I wasn't here either, whatever, I'll.
Well, you
You
can
don't
read
have
the
to,
minutes.
you don't have to be in attendance in order to be able to second.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
approve.
I'll second.
Good.
And now we-
Voice vote?
Yes.
All praise. Okay. That's a good way to do it. Are you hearing me okay with the mask on? Am I speaking loud enough?
It gets a little hard to hear here and there.
well, I'll do my best to speak up. So, do we have anybody from the public present who would like to have any comments? Do you see any record of anyone? Have you let anybody in who's waiting?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Pam Boyd, a Scio resident, Scio Community Newsletter. And Liz, my comments today are a little bit more polished. I kind of read the riot act to TAP, and I'm going to read you guys the same riot act. I pointed out at the TAP meeting yesterday that I was disappointed at the number of residents that came to the Pros open house. There was very little effort at marketing this event. Bill Weber did ask me to include it in Scio Community Newsletter, but that has a relatively small circulation by comparison to the number of Scio residents, but I applaud his request. Someone in TAP said it was posted in the Scio Township Quarterly Mailer, but as any good marketing person knows, humans have a short attention span. After all the effort that was put into your presentation, it failed to get much press because it was old news. Any presentation should have multiple posts frequently. Next door, news articles, and Barry is so good at getting stuff in the various newspapers. Pick his brain. Kathleen mentioned yesterday about sending a specific mailer. Next year, you guys worked so hard on this, and your presentations, I was ill that day, I couldn't come, but I heard from my cohorts that it was a very nice presentation. Next year, please focus on marketing to get better results for in-person attending to help the community have more access and understanding of your good works. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Pam. I think we share your feeling and disappointment that there were not more people there. So we do have to do better. Any other comments? Anybody else on the register there, Jillian? No. All right. Jillian, this is your opportunity if you have anything to say.
Oh, no, I'm just observing.
Okay. All right, reports of other commissions. Again, we may be a bit hobbled because of absences, but was anyone in attendance at the planning commission in the last month? Jillian, were you present?
Yes.
Tell us a bit about anything that might be relevant.
Relevant, well, there was a Heron winery proposal, conditional use was on the agenda. So it looks like it's going to go in front of the board next.
This is the Heron Farm?
Yeah, Heron winery, potential winery. Okay, I'm going by memory here, so. And the other was Crossroads PUD, which is on the corner of Liberty and Wag, and it's in the beginning stages. And then they were discussing the zoning ordinance revisions, drafts. Well, actually, they tabled that. It's going to go to the next one because they ran out of time. So that's it. But as far as the one that just happened, I would have to rack my brain for that.
I'm curious, how long did that meeting go?
I think about 10:30
Oh, so quite a long time.
for a planning commission meeting.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was there any, did you get any drift for the changes to the ordinance?
Well, I read through it, but they didn't discuss it because they ran out of time. So they will be, I think the next meeting, they said they didn't have a lot on the agenda as of now, so they will go over it. But it is in the packet for you to read through. Yeah.
Yeah, I read it through. I think it's fairly important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it the entire planning ordinance or?
No, just
Just portions.
zoning.
It was zoning and it was about the PUD.
Yes, PUD.
Specific changes to the PUD section of the zone.
Okay. Thank you. Parks and Recreation. Usually that's HOB, but
We did not meet in August.
did not meet, okay. But TAP met, I understand you had a good meeting, Liz, is that right?
Yes, that was yesterday, and I'll be as brief as I can because there's a lot that happened that is interesting. As far as the Van Curler Preserve, TAP voted yesterday to approve just under $30,000.
A little louder, Liz, please.
TAP voted yesterday to approve just under $30,000 for an engineering contract with OHM Advisors to develop a proposal for connecting the Van Curler Preserve to Joy Road and to Dexter Huron Metro Park.
Oh, and to the Dexter.
Yeah, so that it's in the,
Through the whole.
yeah, it's
Preserve.
in the early stages, but did I get that right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is new stuff to me, so I'm learning a lot as I listen to them. But that seems like a good,
Were they actually talking about a road that goes there?
No, it's a cross. So, go ahead.
it's just as I understand it, a walking trail, a pathway, and then a crosswalk across.
Parks and Recreation group led by Andy and myself, as well as TAP, met with OHM. They created a proposal for their services. It would be a crosswalk across the Huron River Drive. It ties into the parking lot that's at the far corner next to the bridge and an ancillary trail that would take you to the crosswalk. And so we've had those initial discussions. There's another layer of discussions to be held with the Huron Metro Parks Authority as well,
Okay,
since
all right.
it's in coordination with them. That's part of the proposal. And then doing an evaluative study to do just a crosswalk over to the path system that we would be creating for the Van Curler, which obviously then ties up to the parking lot that's been recommended and is being worked on for off of Joy Road, which is a separate action that the Parks Group has already been working on.
Joy Road.
Directly adjacent to
This is the Wisely Fix.
The Wisely Fix property.
So it goes all the way through. That's kind of neat to think of that, a linear routing there, and then it connects with the trail, the border trail, effectively.
Yes,
That's-
I had an order in back in June for an item that
That's
was out
number
of
one.
stock. And I
Number
set up
two,
auto ship, and
Representative
so it was supposed to
Lozinski,
be in stock
has secured
middle of last month, and
1.7
I haven't
million
received it
in
yet.
state funding.
Order
Part
number
of
is
that is going to be used
576.
for the
sorry.
Zeeb Road pathway, and the other part for the Park Road project.
Yeah, 734.
Which is, as I
945
understand it, about a year away from
1593.
happening. And it's going to involve a pathway along the side
Yeah.
of Park Road where the side where the development is. And my question was, what
Jonathan,
happens to the
last
trees
name is
between
Boyd.
Zeeb and-
Pick up, please.
What happens to the trees between Zeeb Road
It's
and the beginning of that development?
517
And that's just
Linden
very
Lane,
up in the air.
Ann Arbor, Michigan,
Right now.
48103.
So, yeah, and TAP is going to need to decide whether to put some of its budget into that project, that Park Road project. So that's number two. Number three,
hold on one
Woodview Commons, they
second.
talked about the pathway that's part, the public benefit to that project.
Oh, Dervet,
and-
ivermectin.
It goes through the buffer zone, slightly into the buffer zone, which I'm not sure I realized that, but I guess the idea is that foot traffic is different than heavy work machines. So
Dervet,
people walking through the path,
D-U-R-V-E-T,
at all times of year will
ivermectin.
not disturb the rookery.
the second
It's not
item on the order.
deeply beyond that boundary, that 300-foot boundary, but it is somewhat into that area. And the last thing, which I think is super interesting, is the Crossroads PUD. That is at the corner, it's right across from Nye Funeral Home. You know where that is? It's Wagner and Liberty. And so the developer came to the meeting, and he was really interested in connecting,
Yep.
again, for the public
That's the
benefit
stuff.
to that project, connecting that development, which is, you all may know this,
Yep.
212 apartment units, connecting it
And
in
what is
lots
your
of
name?
different, possibly into Ann Arbor, which would of course be good for apartments. 'cause
Yeah,
people
what is
ride
your
their
name?
Bike into work. So he wants to
Okay.
make his public benefit trails into Ann Arbor, or bike trails into Ann Arbor, or, let's see, he said several possibilities. Connecting up with Saginaw Forest, and that would involve working with U of M.
Does this property go right up to Saginaw Forest, or the property he's considering?
Other side of the street. This is the old Libwag property. It's on the corner of,
Isn't it an industrial park now?
It's a vacant one, yeah, pretty much.
this
yeah.
is,
This is not across the street in the section with the
Okay.
Nye Funeral Home.
yes,
It is? Oh, okay.
it's the Nye Funeral Home, it's the corner, and it will abut the property that would become the fire station and then Ren's. And it used to be, it's gone through a number of iterations. The developer came previously and had a PUD for an office complex with a parking lot and a restaurant. And it was, obviously that was pre-pandemic. And now they have revised that and are coming back, I don't have the proposal from me, but are coming back with a residential PUD recommendation for the space. We'll have to go through the same PUD process that any PUD does, and because you have to amend, if you're going to change a PUD, you have to officially amend it. So that's where that's the corner. It's the old Libwag was pure office, then it was an office hybrid with an interior BMP for best management practices for a pond and other things. And now it's coming back as a residential opportunity.
But is it across the street from the Nye Funeral Home? Is it next?
It's on the same side,
Same
same
side? Oh, I see,
Oh, the same
okay.
side.
Oh, okay, I was picturing it when they were talking yesterday, is across the street, but that,
Unless that's a wholly different one, but I'm 99%
Hi.
sure it is on the corner of with
You there?
Nye Funeral Home and would have bought the
I'm
property
good.
that would go with fire.
So
Fire hall
I
and then
had a
which
order
butts obviously
in.
right.
I just talked to the
Right,
order
right,
folks and they
exactly.
directed me to you.
Right, the fire hall.
I
Yeah.
had it
so that's why I
order
was
in
interested
June. I
too,
can give you
because
that
what's
order
right there
number.
with-
Item was out of stock
And I don't,
put
you know, I
on
didn't bring it
auto
up
ship, and
yesterday,
I've
but,
still
and I
not
don't
received
know
it.
how, if anyone would
Looking
be
for
interested
stats.
in connecting that with Friends or whether, Westergaard Farm is private property, you know, so. Anyway, I just thought it was.
Yeah,
And he
first
had
name
information
is John,
on office space
last
for
name is
connectivity to the
Boyd,
path.
B as in Baker, O-Y-D.
Okay.
Previously, this is just carrying through with that similar intent in terms of the public benefit, but obviously now it has changed direction in terms of office to residential.
That's
And I didn't see the
517 Linden Lane, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48103.
Person who was suggesting all those,
I can give you that order number too, if that's
Mark Smith, I guess.
faster.
Yeah, let me grab
I'm
that.
not sure he identified Mark.
Yeah, it's 576
He's on the
722
north side of Liberty.
62.
But this is the same person who came with a proposal for what Alec was talking about a couple years ago.
It's a developer that owns the property,
Do
and
you mind if I
they've
grab
done
that one more
the,
time for you?
quite honestly, they
Yeah.
run the books, and office
576
slash restaurant is not.
seven, two,
they're going to be able
two,
to sustain a
6,
an
2.
approach for that corner, so they've obviously shifted gears and are coming back to the planning commission for a new approach to that corner.
So
But I believe it's the same owner.
running, west, on the west side of the property. His property abuts that.
What side of what
The
property?
township property
I'm
now.
looking for an
Yes, he owns the
order
corner
that
of
has
Liberty and Wagner.
Oh,
So the north,
apple flavored
the,
ivermectin.
the
Yes.
southeast corner of Liberty and Wagner,
Okay, so I
is
do
the live
see that
wag
our
shell
apple flavored
that we're talking about.
ivermectin is.
Where Nye Funeral Home is, property we're talking about, Fire Township Hall, possible property,
Okay.
Friends Farm.
All right, so it never got
So
in
he'd have to
stock,
cross the
or,
street to get to Saginaw Woods.
That's correct.
I mean, I was expecting to see it in
That's
July.
Correct, and church, the 242 Church was interested in
Okay,
assisting with.
fair enough, and you said
Mark Smith
September,
was-
what?
So there's a lot of other pieces to the puzzle, he is just
Right
simply
now, we're
one
looking
part.
for September 23rd.
Okay,
Because we're trying to get.
All right,
down to that
thanks
corner.
very much.
That's
Do you want
tough,
to
right
hold
there.
on to that?
yeah.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah.
Board
No
of,
problem.
any
It's
questions
there for
for
you.
Liz?
If
We've
you
sort of gone over
already
things pretty well, I guess.
hopefully, I have been suggesting.
All right, Alec, tell us about
Well,
the,
actually, it was not intense, I had a work conflict, but obviously the major outcome of that was. the
Yeah, I actually saw some in the local tractor supply the other day, and it reminded me that I hadn't seen it come in from you guys. So, okay, thanks, I'll check back with you next month.
Well overdue and well-deserved thanks for all of her efforts with regards to the
Okay,
Board of Trustees
bye-bye.
as well as on the Land Preservation Commission and planning.
I think we can all echo those sentiments. And I had a conversation with her, before she resigned, and invited her to come back when the time is right and help us again, because we did value her contribution and her love of big trees in particular.
Was there a discussion at the board about the process for making a new appointment?
Yes, that was established at the board for a new appointee.
What was the discussion?
It's actually advertised as appointments for the new Board of Trustee members, if you'd like to seek to fill that position, or do Monday by 4 o'clock.
To the clerk, is that right?
Correct.
Should we draft a formal note of thanks from this commission to Jacqueline?
She might appreciate that.
It'd be nice to meet you.
Can we instruct the secretary to do that on our behalf rather than compose it here among us? Would you do that?
Sure.
We can call me if you have any questions
Yeah,
about it.
I will. You mean like via email or via like written?
I think by email. So-
Well, I'm gonna definitely run it by
You
you.
don't
I'll
have to
give
put
it
it
a
in
shot,
writing,
okay?
you know,
Yeah,
anything.
I'm relatively new, so I haven't known Jacqueline nearly as long as all of you, but I certainly have gotten a picture of her contribution, so.
Well, why don't, let's just, I'll draft something since I feel like I've got a relationship, and I'll send it to you. And you can correct it as usual.
Jacqueline's input was always good.
Insightful.
Valuable to us. That should be recognized.
Yeah, the minutes can reflect our appreciation, and we will do that. Anything more, the Board of Trustees? Okay, all right. Let's go then to old business, Lorenz property. We had talked about some kind of event that acknowledges this unique acquisition, some kind of celebration, and Barry brought it to my attention. We should really get specific. Barry, what did you have in mind?
Last fall? I think it was last fall. In Webster Township, we closed another major deal. It's actually the land that was purchased by Bill Brinkerhoff and Kathy Sample, who started and run Argus Farm Stop in Ann Arbor. They bought a big farm out in Webster. We did a conservation easement on it with federal, state, county, and township money in that case. And we just had a little gathering out there I think it was a Saturday afternoon when there was no football in town, and invited all of the folks who had participated. So the County Parks and Rec Commission and staff people, and we invited people from NRCS, Senator Stabenow, folks from the State of Michigan program and the Ag Preservation Fund Board, the Board of Trustees in Webster, and the LPC equivalent there, and so forth. And we had probably about 40 people that came. I did a short presentation. We took people off on tours of the property. Spent a couple hours doing it. It was just a great thing to be able for us to come together, not as a public event, but just for the folks who contributed funds and hung with it all this time, and obviously the owners in that case. We do the same thing here as well, Vestergaard as well as the Renz family, and so. Been thinking about that and just wanted to get some feedback from folks about whether they think it's a good idea. I would hope so, and when we might do that. And I'm thinking September or October is a good time to do that. It could be a Saturday, it could be a Sunday, and then I would start extending invites to all the different funders that we got to as well.
It's a good idea. I think Mike would probably love to do it. Did you talk to him about it?
I did. His statement was that they're going to be constructing ag buildings on the property sometime soon, and he had got out there to cut the hay that was there, and at some point was going to bring cattle down to the property to pasture them there. But it might be a little bit later on in the year or even next year by the time the buildings were done and the cattle was out there, and that would be the ideal situation. But I think, this is still kind of fresh, and you guys should do something sooner than all that. So I think he's amenable to doing something sooner, even though it's not in the, what he is conceiving of the next stage of the property, the farm.
It's good PR for him.
Absolutely it is, and for everybody, really.
Yeah. Are you thinking food and music as well? Or?
No.
No.
I think we had, cider and bagels or donuts or something at the Base Lake Farm. Just kind of and it was, what time of day we did that? I think it was in the morning, kind of 10 to noon, not real early, but,
Like on a Saturday morning?
Yeah.
That seems like a good idea. Everybody agree that's a good idea.
Sunday? Saturday?
Sunday, right?
I think
It
that's
could be
a
Saturday
great
or
idea.
Sunday,
Yeah,
either way.
great idea.
Okay.
So we need to find a Saturday in September, October without a football game. Is that your thinking?
Well, let's go for Sunday afternoon.
Okay,
Most people can
that's fine.
do it.
Okay, cool. Nothing elaborate, but I think an opportunity for us all to get together.
Anybody have any conflicts to start here with September, October Sundays that we should avoid to start?
I'm gone from the 29th, really the 30th of September through the 12th of October.
And I'll be gone for part of that same time.
Like October's a good time. Could be late October, even if it's a little chilly.
Yeah, that's okay.
Good.
Got enough of a start on that,
Yeah.
Terry? Sounds like we're all in favor of it.
Yep, that's sufficient.
Okay, then further, in your information packet, there was a fairly extensive document, which is the lease that Vestergaard needs. Could you just give us a rundown of why that's necessary and what it achieves?
Yeah, so as y'all know, in the transaction of conserving the Wren's property and then flipping it to Vestergaard, we also the township bought 9.5 acres on the north side of the property, just south of what we were just talking about a moment ago, the Libwag property, for a future fire station location. And, but it's unknown when that will be constructed. It's probably several years, could be longer. In the meantime, Mike said I could make use of that land.
Sure.
By fencing the perimeter with more permanent fencing, and then when he's bringing cattle out there to pasture, he's putting up the temporary fencing and moving the cattle around the property. So he said he'd like to be able to take advantage of that 9.5 acres while it's, until it's slated for the uses that the township foresees in the future. And so I worked with Joe Fazio, our attorney, and drafted up this lease agreement for the property. Again, just that 9.5 acres on the north side. We are looking to charge $50 an acre, which is, I think, a reasonable rate. It's not the best quality land soils on
Is that an annual rate?
site. It's $50 an acre per year, correct. So the rent that would be due is a whole $635. But we thought there should be something. It should not just be free, even though he's going to be putting in.
And did you discuss that with him, that amount?
Yes.
Okay.
So Joe and I drafted the lease that I circulated, and then I sent it to Mike and said, what do you think about this? And he was all good with everything, the terms as well as the price per acre.
And to whom does the money flow if it's signed and he's paying?
Yeah, that's our question that Jacqueline was going to work on for other
Yeah.
properties.
Well, in this case, it's a township-owned property, not acquired through our millage funds.
Oh,
And so I would think it'd just
Go
go,
to the township.
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that
it's a
makes
general
sense.
fund account
So that's a different question.
or
Yeah.
the utilities account or.
I don't think we're going to break any banks with 600.
Yeah, we're not building a new fire station for $635.
So why are we party to the lease? I mean, we're going to have some approval of this lease.
I was thinking that there'd be a
Just as a
recommendation.
recommendation
I
to
think
the
it would
board.
just be a recommendation to
Okay.
the
Board of
intent
Trustees.
for the better stewardship of the property in the interim before it would be engaged as in a fire capacity.
Okay. Did you read the lease, Alex? Did you seem like the sort of thing would be acceptable to the board?
I think it's actually it's protecting that property in some respects in a more formidable fashion by having an active lease and use of it than letting it, sit fallow and having other invasives and everything else. It's actually probably better as a protective measure for that property than having it sit there and we're not, it will be a period of time before we would establish a fire activity there. As long as and we would just need to confirm this, the due diligence of OHM and anything that's required for that, if they needed to do a perk test or anything, and I think they've done all that mostly,
Right.
wouldn't be impeded by the fact that there might be, or he might have to move the cattle off on that one during that period of time, as long as it didn't impede the progress of the evaluation of that property for fire. I see no reason. I think it would be actually a better measure to protect it than just having it sit there.
Yeah, I think it has the possibility of improving soil.
Well, and we also remember as part of the agreement within 9.5 acres, that's part of it. We also established as part of that language that any portion of the 9.5 that was not used would be conserved. So you would just be in advance of that. You would be putting everything in conservation, and then obviously you would peel out what you needed to fire. So it actually is really following the intent of what we intended for that 9.5 regardless.
Do you know, Alec, are there any preliminary or further advanced plans for that 9.5 acres that establishes the footprint of the fire station or the water tower? It's just sort of an approximation, we need about this much, and
It's based on obviously the fire station that we have here and other fire township entities in terms of the amount of land that's normally needed, acquired for it. That's why once that's built out and you come up with a plan, then you'll see whether or not it's 9.25 or 9.5 or 8.75 or, because there's the water function part of it as well. So before those are fully engineered and laid out and overlaid on the property, I don't think you'd be able to make that real determination.
What I like about the idea is that we have also discussed what do we do with properties that the township owns and that, that don't have another owner on the property. And we have discussed the possibility of leasing.
Yes.
yeah, that's a good
And
point.
so here's a dry run for how that
Yes,
works for the
exactly.
township. The only thing is that would be different. Maybe not. I'm thinking that property is clearly belongs to the township. And I guess even properties that we have purchased for the township, that the township owns, that belongs to the township. So
Yes.
I guess the proceeds would go back into the township pockets, not into our budget.
Correct. In this case, because it's not, that 9.5 acres was not purchased with millage funds. In the other cases, the property we bought on Park Road, for example, that we've had some discussion, initial discussion at least, about potentially leasing that out for use. Those are properties that were bought with millage funds.
But would the funds that we get from leasing that, would that go back to the township or to our budget?
I would argue in those cases that it should go back into our account, the millage account, if you will.
Because it was millage funds that we used to buy it.
Yeah, as opposed to general fund or what was used for the 9.5 acres of the Rents property. The other difference is in those other cases, like on Park Road, the initial discussion that we've had is opening it up for proposals, as we did with the RFP for the Rents property that ended up in Vestergaard's hands. And in this case, it's 9.5 acres. It's adjacent to the rest of his land. It's not one that I would suggest should be offered up publicly. So other
Very
people,
temporary.
yeah, it's a temporary thing, and he's right next door. He can make ready use of it. And so rather than going through what we are conceiving of as a public process for leasing those other lands, I think we should just say it's yours.
Any objection to that notion of approving a lease for the Vestergaard of that property? Do you have a motion, or can you make a motion that would be sufficient for conveying our approval to the Board of Trustees?
Yeah, so.
Say it nice and slowly.
The LPC recommends to the Board of Trustees that the agricultural lease agreement between Scio and Vestergaard, 2 A's, Farms, LLC, I guess we should say, be approved.
Okay, period, that's it.
So somebody want to
So-
make that motion? All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right.
I like the idea of having cows on that corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
It just is, it's
Yeah,
very.
just for a while.
Might change the residential. proposal.
But, and,
They're not no-
there's a joke about that. We got the
No, I know.
notion that
We already- I know.
cows on pasture don't
Yes,
stink,
I understand.
like cows in a
Whole
confined
through
area.
all wax, I understand.
So anyway, motion on the table.
So, can we vote?
We can vote. I think we can just do a raise hand vote then.
Right, okay.
You would call
All
that.
right, all in favor of the vote?
I,
All right, good, all right.
And so do you want me to send this to Will, or how do you want to handle that?
I can send-
Jacqueline is the
I can
record
send
that would
it.
do those kinds of things. Okay, and so you've got the lease available to you? Yep. As part of the package, you saw that. Okay, cool.
by the way, let me just throw this out since we're on Mike Vestergaard. I got a call yesterday from a friend of Mike's, and he was asking me if I knew of any building in the county that would be suitable for a processing facility. So Mike have you talked to Mike about this?
No.
He's evidently considering doing his own processing of his animals, which is, there's another group working on that.
Processing of what?
Of his animals,
Oh.
slaughtering, butchering, so on.
It's a very humane way to do it on site, I think, if you're gonna do that.
That's what he's doing now.
On his other farm.
I don't think he.
No, I think he's taking it somewhere else.
It's gotta go.
Oh, I know, I think he was using an outside facility, but I'm saying that is a humane way to
Oh, yeah, yeah.
slaughter animals on site.
Slaughtering.
Well,
Anyway,
that sounds like a little beyond what we.
so if it is, it doesn't, I'm just saying that to support Mike, if anybody knows of anything.
Oh, okay, okay.
Get word to him.
All right. You can bring that up.
I think it's good, though. That's another feather in Mike's cap
All right.
to be looking for.
All right. Okay, I think we've passed on that then. Another item on full committee, and again, it's not our purpose to go into this in detail. I think an email went around regarding potential contributions that we or anybody else might make to the campaign. Did you receive that? I sent it earlier this afternoon on behalf of Lisa, who's homesick.
No, I didn't get it.
Yeah, well, basically the suggestion that Lisa had for appropriate contribution would be $50 to $100, which covers the brochures and the signs and any other promotion. And again, no obligation, and it's not an official act, but
I would suggest that's not purview to this meeting, and that you take a look. If you don't have the email, then
Hello, there's
contact
John.
Will. But really, a millage renewal as a subject matter is not for us to be discussing. That's for an outside subcommittee to be discussing, whether it be
okay.
contributions
Yeah,
or otherwise.
it's still,
So,
yeah,
I would
still
just
doing
simply say
fine.
that
Still
there
doing what it's
is
supposed
millage
to do.
renewal committee, and that please, you can refer to the email, and if there's outside questions that should
Okay.
generate and circulate outside of this meeting.
enough said. Under new business, in a sense, we've talked about this,
Okay. All right, thanks for the
Jocelyn's
call.
resignation.
Oh.
I think we can talk about a probable course here, Alec, of how replacement might
no,
go.
that's-
I spoke with Will Hathaway
Yeah, that's okay.
about it,
We won't pursue
and
it.
the process is we'll appoint someone who then, with the board approval,
Okay,
would become our
thanks.
new rep. And I don't think it's any secret that we would like to have Alec, who's so familiar with the procedures and has had an initial role in it. So I think that's the process that we'll go through.
That would be the process. I would be willing to serve as such. One of the things that came up, obviously, is my availability, which actually Will had reached out to me, and I'm not available at 3 in the afternoon. Unfortunately, I have taken a look at my calendar and have been able to. I would suggest, I know there were some suggestions for alternate times, and maybe I'll throw out the one I think that maybe work best for everyone, and then or maybe works best for me, and then people can see whether or not that would work for them. I can, in 95% of the time, make it by 4 p.m. rather than 3 p.m., which would give us some consistency for having it on a Thursday afternoon. Additionally, that allows us to be done approximately by 6 o'clock, which is a traditional dining hour for many. If we push it back to the 5:30, I'll speak for myself, I traditionally do not eat prior to that. So I would be then waiting to eat till 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. So I think it, as a compromise, and you do not need to compromise for my availability. I'm just simply saying, if I am hoping to help serve, I'd be happy with 4 to 6, and that shouldn't conflict with my scheduling, but I would put that out to the larger group. And that's to have your thoughts as well.
Right.
4 to 6 on Thursdays?
Yeah, how does that sound to three of you?
Good.
I think that's acceptable to Hob. I discussed with him this probability of changing our time. I think it may be that 3 has been a problem for others of us on occasion.
I like it better.
In the past, there's been a number, we've always struggled depending on the person. It's never like the whole group, it's always 1 or 2 of us. Admittedly, sometimes it's been me in the past. Admittedly, it's been others as well. It's not, it's something that we just defaulted to from the earliest meetings a decade ago.
Almost 2 decades ago.
And so,
Well, Barry, it works for you?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so 4 to 6.
4 to 6 is
So, okay.
I like it better.
Our next meeting is Thursday, the 8th of September,
Okay.
and that'll be 4 o'clock.
So, you know, there are certain things that have gotten programmed into calendars and websites, so we need to be sure to alert Jessica or Christy or somebody to change the scheduling henceforth to second Thursdays at 4 rather than 3.
Well, I can do that. I can communicate with Christy and Fran and let them know and ask them to change that on the township website.
Yeah. Actually, proactively, I'm notifying them that this is the change because I think otherwise it's just going to be assumed what the time is. And
Tell
so
me again.
what I'm saying is to just put it on an agenda or in our minutes that this is the change. They're not going to necessarily.
No,
get that.
I would set a separate.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
good,
for sure.
good.
Yeah.
All right. So should we vote
Do we
to,
have to formally do anything, or can we just say our meeting will be an hour later?
just this is the way it's going to work?
Yeah, I thought so.
Put it in the minutes,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't think it's a matter
Okay.
that needs to have our names behind a vote.
No, I don't need it.
All right, great. So we've done that. All right, now we're at open session consultants report. Wesley Fix item among others.
I'm sorry, so second Thursday.
Yeah, just like now, but just an hour later. Yeah, and that means we'll be living in the dark soon, but that's okay.
Starting in the light, ending in the dark.
So, Barry, you want to give us a sense of what remediation needs to be taken about here?
Yes, and I'm wondering if I should share this document at this point.
It's a matter of we have to re-recommend to the board.
Yeah, but in terms of the actual, the open session report.
Okay, you can share the document by reading it or printing it?
By sharing the screen on Zoom.
Oh, okay, good, that's a good idea.
You can do that.
Okay. There you go.
So let me start at the top here, and then we'll work down to the issue at hand. We are still owed from the United States government
Oh, I thought that had been decided.
$868,550. It's in process. I've been assured of that. I emailed with Brian Thomas, the federal program coordinator, last week about this because I hadn't heard anything for a little while. And he said that he had, assembled all of the documents that were needed and sent it off to the dreaded internal controls, wherever that is and whoever that is. And that they can take 30 days to process those things. And as of last week, it wasn't 30 days yet. So we got to be coming up on that pretty close. But he did say it's in process. And so I, again, want to reiterate that I'm 100% confident that we will get that reimbursement. It just hasn't hit our bank account yet. And you will hear when it does.
What's the amount of that?
868,550.
So
It's a big chunk of change. And in terms of an update on the Resource Conservation Partnership Program, RCPP, we have the new partnership, the Lake Erie Partnership, with $7.5 million of dedicated federal funds. that we'll be sharing with the Greenbelt program in the county, in Webster and Ann Arbor Township, and probably the Land Conservancies too. And those funds have technically been available for us to apply for since October 1 of last year. But there's been no process to apply for those funds. And as you know, there was no RCPP coordinator at the state office of the Natural Resources Conservation Service up until recently. And a while ago, Remy Long, my colleague from the Greenbelt program, sifted through all of the materials and came up with what he thought we were supposed to do. But again, in the absence of having a coordinator who could say, yes, you're correct on that, or I will track that down, or whatever, we didn't know for sure. Now Remy's been in contact with this coordinator in East Lansing, and they've hammered some things out. And so sometime soon, I think maybe this year, we will have the ability to apply for those funds. And that is guaranteed 50% federal match for basically any property that you want to submit, from 15 acres to 100 acres or larger. There's a limit about how much we have claim to.
Is there a figure in mind for us to claim to, or?
Yeah, there is. It was part of the proposal that we all submitted. Everybody said, well, we commit to doing a certain amount. I don't remember what our figure is off the top of my head. But it's a substantial chunk of change. It may not be enough to do a very large project, but certainly a larger project or several smaller projects. And the way things, I think, are going to be set up now is that, unlike in past years where the deadline for RCPP was the same as the other federal grant program, the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, ACEP, which had one annual deadline per year, sometime in March usually. That will not be the case with these RCPP funds. So we can submit the materials for them at any time. So it's essentially a rolling deadline.
Great, yeah.
Yes.
That's huge. A
It-
lot of ASAP.
Yeah.
Deadlines.
Yeah. So whenever we have our stuff together for whatever property it is that we can put it into the pipeline, it'll go through theoretically a faster review process. And the
Which
funds-
also has no timelines in it, so the funds could presumably be approved not on a time frame as well, or are all the funds, grants awarded on a particular date?
No. So
The whole thing rolls, is that?
like, again, still working out some details, but ideally, sometime maybe as few as 30, but probably more like 60 days after the stuff is all submitted. The federal program would say, yes, you've done everything, you're good to go. Unlike the ASEP program where we apply in March, you get the notifications in July or August, the funds are committed, and then you can proceed from there. We can do that anytime.
Okay.
We're also working on a number of documents to streamline the process. For example, a conservation easement. So previously for ASEP or RCPP, Scio had its easement, the Greenbelt had its easement, the county had its easement, everybody had their own form of easement. With a lot of similarities, but sort of different formats of language and so forth. We're all agreeing that we're going to submit one easement, and that's the one we're going to use. And that will be approved ahead of time. So we come in and say, we're filling in Scio Township, and it's this property, and it's this amount of money, and you pick out the things that apply to that particular property and pull out the things that don't. And so theoretically, that process will also be streamlined. And a couple of other things like that as well, so that this review process should go fairly quickly. Should go. So great credit to Remy for all the additional work that he's put in, not only to secure these funds in the first place, but also now as the coordinator of this partnership, that he's working with the federal coordinator now, and getting these things all in place. So again, hopefully sometime later this calendar year, that will all be approved and we'll be ready to roll.
Great.
Yeah.
Barry, I'm not clear on, you said $7.5 million is earmarked for this county?
Yes, for the partners.
In this county?
In this
For all
county.
the townships, the Greenbelt, so on.
Yes, and again, I remember all the partners, but it's definitely the Greenbelt, Washtenaw County Parks for their natural area preservation program, and 3 funded townships, and I think the conservancies are involved also to some degree. And so, and everybody, you know, $1 million originally, and we're awarded $7.5 million. So we had an original, you know, $1 million or whatever it was, and Scio said, we're committing to this. And then we had to pare it back, so maybe we're at, you know, $750 now. I can't remember exactly what it was. But that's what we have immediate access to. So we come up with a project, and you know, let's say it's a $500,000 project, just for argument's sake. We got $250 guaranteed from the federal program. We can put in the $250 ourselves. We can go after county money or state money. And in this case, this time also, unlike the previous 2 RCPP awards, which were that were sort of following in line with the ASEP program, where even though we had guaranteed federal funds, there had to be at least a third of the property in active agricultural use. This one doesn't have to have any agricultural land at all. It's broader with the intention of improving water quality in Lake Erie. Hence the name of that. So if we're conserving a whole property that's just woods or wetlands or whatever, and has no farmland on it, we can do that with this money.
So this is going to be good for the other townships that are.
All of us. All of us.
Getting their villages together.
Yes. So the ones that are on the ballot this year for the first time, which is Dexter and Northfield, are not partners to this RCPP. At least not at this time. Will they be in the future? Potentially. They could be added on as partners in the future, but since they don't have a dedicated revenue source at this point through a millage, then they weren't approached about being partners, but they could be added in the future. The other thing that could happen is there could be a property in one of those townships that is submitted to, say, Washtenaw County. Or if it's in Northfield and it's the southern half of the township, it could be a Greenbelt-led project. And so the Greenbelt could get access to the 50% federal funds, and then you come up with some township money or Greenbelt money, you can piece it all together. There's ways to get to the end point, even if those groups are not partners yet.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so that's great progress on that. And again, hats off to Remy. He's just been outstanding for all these things. In terms of projects, no update from the Delhi Woods property. We're just waiting to hear from them at this point. And then the Wisely and Fix property. This is that 9.5 acres. Actually, the purchase area is 8.716 acres, if I remember correctly. Adjacent to the Van Curler Preserve on the south side of Joy Road. Things are finally moving along there. I had submitted the land division application to Cody and Megan like 4 months earlier, and kept emailing them and saying, you just need to sign the application. And after 4 months, they finally did sign it and turn it in, and that's been approved at this point. And they've also returned the amendment to the purchase agreement that we have for that, which changed the closing date, the amount of acres, and the purchase price for the property from the original purchase agreement. When we had it surveyed, and then and they decided they wanted to keep a bit more land, so we've reduced the purchase area down to 8.7 acres and change, which affected the purchase price, and then we had a closing date that we've since passed. So I drafted that amendment for Scio's review. And then one of the other documents, since we have partnerships with the Greenbelt program and county parks for this purchase, we have this document called the participation agreement between those 3 parties, identifying what the roles and responsibilities are for each of the partners, who's putting in what money, who's getting the phase 1, all those kinds of things. And there's a line in there saying the date of the approval of the funds by the city council, the county parks commission, and the township board. And I have not been able to find out when the township board approved that.
Yeah, I've discussed this the other day. I recall doing it,
Yeah,
and
So you wanna redo it?
I've not been able to dig out information on the date that we did.
we have minutes from, thanks to Erwin Martin, from every LPC meeting through September of 2020, I think it was. And then Liz provided me with some other minutes starting
Yeah.
in
In December.
December.
But we are missing 3 months.
And I did find 2 of them somewhere. I
Oh,
found
did you?
October and November, but not December.
Okay.
And I think it was December when you made the motion. And I think the Board of Trustees then acted on it in later on in December, but I can't find any record of that. It did happen, Alec has a memory of it at least, and the original purchase agreement was signed by the supervisor, which would not happen had there not been BOT approval. I just don't have the date for it. And the only other option I have at this point is to, I guess, since we've maybe narrowed it down to 1 or 2 meetings, but probably just 1 meeting, of the BOT, that I could watch the proceedings. And the suspicion, when I talked to Will Hathaway about this, the agendas for those meetings are up online, but the agendas were changed on the night of the agenda, or after they were posted, I should say, sometimes on the night of the meeting as well. And so this item may have been added to it.
Yeah, fallen into that.
And the agenda wasn't updated to reflect additional items that were placed on the agenda. So that's why I was like, I could listen to 8 different meetings and see if we could come up with it. So after much discussion, we thought an easy thing to do is to have the LPC make another recommendation for the same thing and then take it to the BOT later on this month, and that will be the date then.
I think that's a good fail-safe.
Yeah.
If in the interim, if we
Yeah.
are able to establish the date, we won't have to do that.
Right, but we're close enough now to closing. The documents are under review by our city and county partners. That 60-day clock is ticking, and we've already been, I think, maybe 3 weeks into that. So in that sense, it's still timely for the recommendation and then the action by the Board of Trustees later on this month.
Okay, so
In what form?
I will move that the LPC here, that we recommend to the Board of Trustees the allocation of $40,000 for the purchase of the Wisely Fix property. And do I need to add any other word?
And typically, we also say to cover also the closing costs and any other related items.
Okay. Add that, please.
Can we identify the property now that it's in our public, in the public domain by name instead of by property number?
Yes,
Okay.
or you can do both.
I'll do both. I'll
There
do
still
both.
is an application number, but
It's 2020-4?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's the Wisely
right, I got it.
Fix property, yeah.
Thank you.
So a motion on the table for that.
Would you read the motion?
Barry will read the motion. Go ahead, Barry.
Well, Tim made it, but
Yeah.
it's to recommend to the Board of Trustees to expend not to exceed $40,000, and it's 39 and change, so just to be safe.
Purchase the property along with the closing
Yep,
costs.
okay.
And associated costs for closing.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And Tim's made the motion. I'll second the motion.
Okay. Can we do this by, no, we have to vote.
Recommend, well, you can, because we're spending money, you're not spending money, you're recommending.
Oh, we're right there. Okay. So we can do by, you're saying we can do by raise?
I think you can.
Call for a raise hand vote.
Voice vote.
All in favor? That's,
Aye.
yeah, right. Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Good, all right. So again, do you want to carry that to the board?
Do I have that language?
for the,
I'll wait for.
I'll get it to
If
you.
you'll send it to me, I will.
But I'm gonna run it by you first, Barry,
Yep.
if you'll,
Yep.
make sure I have that right.
great, thank you. That's all for the open session report.
Okay, so make a motion to go into closed session.
I so moved.
Artie makes a motion, second.
I will second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. We're all in favor?
Yeah.
So, we're in closed session now.
The stop videos.
Yeah, so, can you see, is everyone off?
Yeah, well, give me a minute. I need to get John to close down the recording at our end. So give me just a second when you see. I guess I can't text you, but we'll be leaving shortly. Just give us a minute. Thank you.
Okay.